Yes. Um, Welcome to Come Well to another episode, another doorway, another portal entitled Am I as I am, as you are? Today's episode is going to be touching upon something that I think is very relevant and very important in people's relationships and how they conduct themselves and how they interact with each other. This goes into a more deeper learning of each other's most subtle natures, most hidden natures of each other, most subliminal um, understandings of each other, of you with your husband, with your wife, you with your mate, your creation. um, so the title of today's video cast is The Power of Silent Communication with Your Loved One. The power of silent communication with your loved one. Before I begin this teaching and this sharing of light, I just want to make something known before I go further. Okay? I'm going to read this out for 1 second. These methods, tools, and formulas are not for everybody in an intimate relationship. This is specifically for those who have their survival circumstance, situation, and environment under a certain kind of control to a point where they can actually stop and think for a second so that they can actually utilize these specific principles and devices of mind, body, and spirit to find their center and center of power. Okay? These methods and tools are not specifically for those who are in extremely stressful conditions, stressful situations, and stressful atmospheres that aren't given the opportunity to stop and think and utilize the functions and faculties of their mind. Nevertheless, my compassion goes out to you. In order for these methods to actually be applied, practiced, and work for you and yours, you have to be able to at least think for yourself. You have to at least be able to think by yourself. You have to have access to your freedom and free mind at least 50% of your day. You have to be able to be alone in silence and privacy when wanted or desired without any other or outer interruption or distraction. You have to genuinely, honestly, and undoubtedly want better for yourself and your surroundings, your situation and your condition. Or else these applications and practices will not come to life for you and will not have permission to become your reality. You're going to have to recognize and grab hold of your purity and your innocence, i.e., your soul. You're going to have to be able to make contact with your soul and commune with your soul. This is known as the dance of the soul. Okay? I wanted to make that known before I make this shown and touch upon these aspects because we're touching upon a very sensitive, very subtle, very subliminal principle, which is silence. And if you want to understand the power of silence and the power of silent communication with you and your loved one, and what you can benefit out of it, and what out of it enhances you in return, you're gonna need to know these things. You're gonna need to have a person that has their situation, their survival under certain control, because survival is a nuance. It can be a thing, a nuisance that can constantly cycle in your brain. I have to do this, or I have to eat this, or I have to get this, or I have to get that. I mean, we all do it to a certain degree, but if it's to a very high degree with you, These practices may not work for you. It may not. I'm not saying that it won't completely, absolutely. It's going to be more challenging. And if you accept the challenge, then so be it. Okay, for those of you who are familiar with this channel, I go line for line, which I call doorway after doorway, and together we both walk down this hallway. I appreciate those who reached out for more consultations, private consultations, one-on-one consultations. As you see, I'm able to expound upon more points uh, more broadly, especially a one-on-one interaction. When you ask a question, you make me go with the quest in. That's the question I always say. The question is the quest in. So every time we ask a question or you ask a question and we interact on the consultations, the private consultations, I get to expound more deeply into the point that I'm making, um, depending on the topic at hand. There's an actual dialogue, present dialogue taking place, which reveals other aspects of myself to those who hold these private consultations with me and see that I can go uh, not just on the mystery of things. I know the history of things, the mystery of things, but here on the camera, me talking to a camera and a screen, I can only touch upon certain principles and certain lines and just expound upon it a certain way to a certain degree because I have nothing talking back to me to actually open up more doorways inside of me to get more clarity on the points. Okay? So I want to make that clear before we go on. Okay. Silent communication. What is silent communication? The first line and or doorway is every time I am forced to or promoted to or put forth to verbalize an explanation to you, we jeopardize our spiritual linguistic connection. Every time I am forced to explain something to you, I am forced into the external, which is the temporary or the temporal or the corporeal reality. To speak in silence is to activate and or to begin practicing and applying the silent knowing intelligence within ourselves, while at the same time perceiving it as a direct, clear connection to the one that we love, or the one that we emanate love to, or share a loving experience with. In a way, it's practicing speaking to each other in actions of endearment and peacekeeping. The peace code or code of peace. It's about acknowledging in silence what the other one is conveying to you without the spoken word. It is to observe the presence, energy, agenda, and intention your loved one is omitting towards you. There's an intelligence within the silence. There's a science within the silence. Science and silence. These two words are synonymous to each other. Silence is a science. Therefore, there is a science to silence. So every time somebody's forced to explain something to somebody, because explain is the external plane. If I am an internal being and you're asking me to explain something to you, you're pulling me from the internal plane onto the external plane, which is the temporary plane. This is why a lot of relationships kind of go up and down, but more downsloping than peaking, because when it comes to an external interaction and an explanation and explaining that she has to do or that he has to do, you're pulling them from their natural core, from their natural nucleus of being. Their natural nucleus of being is eternal. Their external being is external, which is the temporary. So you're pulling them from a permanent state of their beingness to a temporary state of doingness. Okay? And this is why things don't last or don't last as long as planned or intended to be. Okay? The next line in our doorway is silence is to coexist with each other in joy, balance, and contentment in a land of nowhere. There's no care or concern of a location, or there's no care or concern of a location, only a rotation. To be in divine correspondence, encountering intelligence. That in itself is an unknown home of safety and covenants that both parts share in faith. To be of a spiritual nature means to coexist without disruption of flow. So coexistence, this is spirituality, this is spiritual nature. Spiritual nature, if I was to define it, you put a definition on it or a description, it means to coexist without the disruption of a flow, without the disruption of a harmony that is present, that you may not be seeing, that is flowing. Okay? So silence or spirituality is to coexist with each other, enjoy balance and contentment in the land of nowhere. And in that land of nowhere, there is no care or concern of a location, only a rotation. You, then him. You, then her. You, then him. You, then her. You, then him. This is how there is something called an Eros Buros or an Uros Buros. It's the serpent swallowing its tail. It's a circle. And it's a cycle. But it's not a cycle that creates a psychosis. It's once you are aware of the cycle, you are not victim to the cycle. You don't become the circle, you become the spiral. Spiral inward and you can spiral outward. Like I told you before, the spiral was more ancient than the circle. The circle was some brand new. The spiral was more spiritual, the circle was more human. It is also to be in divine correspondence and countering intelligence. Whatever, you're countering because you're always trying to equal out. You're always trying to keep equality as present as possible. You're always trying to keep the dual nature, because equality is duality. You're respecting her in her feminine nature and you're respecting him in his masculine nature. So that is the dual nature. That is the duality. And that is the equality. That is what keeps things equal. That is what keeps things in balance and centeredness. But you have to know of his masculine nature. You have to have a knowledge of his masculine nature. You have to have a knowledge of her feminine nature. But if you do not have a great knowledge of his masculine nature, must be willing to be silent and be still and be aware and watch and observe it in his ways. That way, before anything even occurs, you're already there to counteract, to neutralize the situation before he even knows it, before she even knows it. Okay? The next line in the doorway is, to be silent is to be of pendulum intelligence, to get into the natural swing of life, the law of action-reaction, what's already done and what is to be or become. So what's already done and what is to be or become. To see the action and know of the action before the action becomes active. In other words, to be kind of a natural resolver. To be a natural resolver that solves something before the solution becomes a problem. So before the solution becomes a problem, you already have the solving. You already have the tool to solve the situation before the solution becomes an actual problem. You already know. You see it ahead of time. Okay. And it's to be of pendulum intelligence. Once the pendulum swings this way, its natural rhythm is to swing in the opposite direction. So if you see something swinging a certain way between you and your mate, it is your duty as the one who is aware, who is the one witnessing, who is the one seeking some kind of self-discipline and control of their own nature, seeking the intelligence of silence. It is your duty and your responsibility to come up with a quick solving remedy before that solution turns into something otherwise. Okay? So this is why it's like a pendulum intelligence. The pendulum knows where it's going when it swings that way. It knows it's coming back this way. And when it swings up this way, it knows it's coming back that way. See, understand what I'm saying? So it's like something swinging over here. Be this intelligence, the empty intelligence, the silent intelligence, the transparent intelligence, before it swings back over here. Then the ball is back over here. Now you're over here in the silent spot, the invisible spot, the transparent spot. And you already know that it's coming back. When it comes back, you come back over here. You see, so you're in a constant receiving, um, uh, knowing. I don't want to say expecting, a knowing. It's a certain kind of knowing, a certain kind of sensing, a certain kind of, you just feel, you know what to do before you know what to do, in a certain way of understanding. Like I said, to see the action and know of the action before the action becomes active, to be a natural result. Okay? The next line in our doorway is the importance and relevance of silence, stillness, aloneness, and self-reflection. It is only in these states that one is in that they begin to hear their own ill thoughts, see their own ill actions on a one-dimensional mind screen, and it is this very space that one will reach out in due time back to you and apologize for their ill ways, if an ill way was committed or taken place. Ill ways that they weren't able to see and figure out when they were around you because your presence was giving them an external view and external distraction, which was interrupting their internal process and spiritual progress. If you're still there in front of them during the confrontation, they project outwardly. When you're no longer there, they begin to reflect inwardly. Because reflection is the only thing that exists in that very alone and private moment. Nothing else. You're leaving them to themselves, in other way of understanding. Hoping their awareness and fair nature of beingness would sprout from that. So this is the aloneness. When somebody's alone, they're self-reflecting. This is why when someone get into arguments or disagreements and conflict and friction breaks out, you two go your separate ways and you go into some silent space. She goes into the kitchen, you go into the room. Or she goes into the room, you go outside. Or she steps outside, you go in the car and you take a drive. Or she goes in the car, you go and you take a walk. And in these silent private quarters of the orbits of your being is when you are left with nothing but this one-dimensional mind screen of what you've just done or what you just committed that you did not see in the midst of you committing it, because you are forced now to self-reflect because they are no longer in front of you to use as a verbal punching bag or sometimes even a physical punching bag, which is very unfortunate. But mostly verbal punching bags. So your verbal punching bag is no longer there. So what are you going to punch at? You begin to punch on yourself because then you see the foolery or the imbalance that was hidden during the midst of the noise, the yelling, the screaming, the confrontation that you did not see, that was waiting for you to prove, that was waiting for you in the orbit of silence to let you self-reflect back on yourself. And this is why people, when they're in their own separate quarters, one comes to the other some way or both come to each other and they apologize and they take accountability and responsibility for what they contributed to that imbalance that happened at that time. They'll come back and say, my fault. So, pardon me for that. I kind of seen what I did. I didn't see it when it was happening, but I seen it after. It took me some time, and respect their time. Your time may be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, maybe immediately. Get pissed off and like, no, I can't do it. Or just let me go balance out. Let me utilize myself for back. Because that's a possession. And sooner or later, one of you apologize to each other. Or both of you come together and apologize to each other to neutralize the situation. Apology means you're emptying out. You're taking the weight. She's taking the weight. He's taking the weight. And in that taking of weight is lightness, is weightlessness that comes about. That's the neutralization of the energy. Okay? The next line in our doorway is Practice speaking to them through mentalism, telepathy, and through endearing actions of situation neutralization. Practice this in the silence and privacy of your own mind. Instead of a text or writings and verbalizations. So instead of texting them a whole bunch of stuff, writing a whole bunch of stuff to them, or verbalizing to them how you felt about situation, or if that moment is intense in that moment, tell them how you feel telepathically through the power of mentalism. See what I'm saying? Practice this, and through endearing actions of situation neutralization. So you're doing endearing things, like they piss you off, and you mad at them all, possessing them all, and you see that they always put their cup off the coaster on the counter, in the kitchen. Like, yo, I'm tired of this shit. This shit's crazy. I'm not dealing with this. I told her that. She just don't get it. Turn to the counter, and instead of saying, you see, you didn't put the cup on the coaster like you're supposed to do. Don't even say nothing. Just take the coaster, then take the cup and put the cup on the coaster and walk off. Sooner or later, she's going to walk past that kitchen. And she's going to see, if she remembers what she's done with that cup off the coaster on the counter of the kitchen table or the counter, she's going to look and glance at the cup on a coaster. And she's going to know that you just done something which was endearing, which was caring, of some kind of care and concern without letting her know, without telling her about it. The same thing. And there's some kind of softness that's going to occur. There's some kind of appreciation that's going to sprout from her when she sees that you've done that. Even if she's mad and pissed off at you, appreciation and gratitude still sprouts within that moment, within her. She's like, damn, even time. He just did it. Even while we were mad at each other, he did it. He could have made that something extra. He could have added that as more gas and fire, but he didn't. He just put my cup off the coaster, and on top of that, he wiped where my cup was under, because there was some kind of water underneath it or some kind of liquid underneath the cup. So he wiped that, put my cup on the coaster. Didn't tell me anything about it during the argument or right after. It just walked off. I come and I witness. See, or it could be the opposite. Your clothes are all over the floor, you get pissed off and you argue, and you walk, like, man, fuck that. You walk off into the room or something. And she just looks down to the floor while she's mad at you, while she's angry at you. And just sees your clothes all over the floor, like, yo, I told this nigga not to put his clothes on the floor. And instead of her adding extra gas to the fuel and knocking on the door and like, listen, and see what I'm saying? You keep your clothes on the floor, you don't pick them up. This is also why I'm mad she didn't say that. She just took the clothes up off the floor and put it inside the handbook and brought it downstairs to the laundry. Or upstairs to the laundry. And cleaned them. And then you walk out the store here, that's why I can't, it's not gonna work. And you glance at the floor and you see that the floor is nothing on the floor. And you're like, and you pause for a minute. Because it's kind of strange when these things happen, but it's a beautiful thing that happens. She just did an endearing action for the neutralization of the situation. And she also did it, or he also did it, to, at the same time of anger, he's seeking appreciation and gratitude, regardless. Within himself, he maybe wanted to practice appreciation, balance, contentment, centeredness within himself. So he did it to better himself, and as a reflection, it also begins to neutralize the present heated, heavy situation. Okay, it's just an example of what I'm saying. Um, uh, yeah, so speak to them through mentalism or telepathy and through endearing actions of situation visualization. So you're speaking to them when you're committing these endearing acts. You're speaking to them because eventually they're gonna have to pass that path, and they're gonna see and take a glance. She's gonna glance at the counter, the kitchen counter. He's gonna glance at the floor. Something is going to happen. Something is going to spark in them in that moment, and they're gonna keep it to themselves, and then they may counter it. See, he did that for her. She's seen it. Walked in the bathroom with appreciation and gratitude. He came out the room, seen his clothes off the floor, and then he may do something extra now that you may see later on during that day or tomorrow morning that you didn't even have to ask him, and you know that he told you plenty of times not to do that. And you know that she told you plenty of times, can you please not do that? But instead of her using that as extra firepower or extra gasoline to put onto a fire which is trying to be put out, she didn't say nothing. She just committed the endearing action. He didn't say nothing. He just committed the endearing action for situation neutralization and emotional neutralization as well, emotional balance. Um, and you do this instead of texting, writing, verbalizing, sort of stuff. As long as you're giving them something to view and something to hear, they are banned from their own internalization, which is to internalize the present external situation in order to neutralize it from the inside out, which is somewhat of an orchestration of manipulation of internal elements and forces that take command from the intention and sets the demand of the desired external situation to manifest. I know it's a little bit wordy. You can always rewind it, bring it back, and little by little, as you hear this over and over, receive more clarity. These are how my videos are. Play it back and you get more clarity. You don't just watch a video and that's it. You have to play it back. Certain parts you may have to play back to get and understand what I say when I say it. Say it one more time. As long as you're giving them something to view and something to hear, he's throwing stuff all over the place and he's screaming and yelling. As long as you're giving them something to view and something to hear, they are banned or you're banning them from their own internalization, which is to internalize the present external situation in order to neutralize it from the inside out, which is somewhat of an orchestration and manipulation of internal elements and forces that take command from the intention and sets the demand of the desired external situation to manifest. So let them go inside. They may come out with a solution. They may resolve the situation. But if you're stopping them from going inside, if you're breaking things, punching things, kicking things, throwing things, smashing things, destroying things, you're giving them something to view and something to hear. And the more angry they become, the more you're keeping this chemical soup turning into a chemical poison in their immune system, in the chemistry and alchemy of their biology, which keeps them in the brain, doesn't let them transcend beyond the brain and body into the spirit and transcend beyond the spirit into the soul, which is where we are trying to connect to, make contact with, and commune with. This is what silence is. Silence is the soul. Okay? It'll get more clearer as we go along. The next line in Odori is, spirit is a quiet intelligence. It speaks in silence, principle, symbology, and shapes. Speaking, verbalizing, and sound interrupts your reception of it and its arrival to you. Verbalization and animation is ego. Silence and action is spirit. One more time. Verbalization and animation is ego. Silence and action is of the spirit, which is nothing but a reflection of the soul in a certain way of understanding, because they are actually two different intelligences. But in a way of understanding, according to the points I'm trying to make, according to the topic of this video, silence and action is of the spirit. So when you do things, like I said, once again, endearing actions or actions of endearment. That is being of the spirit. That is being of the silence. You see? So therefore, nothing but a spiritual result can come about from that. Okay? Which is the soul, which connects to the soul. Verbalization and animations of the ego. F this, F that, you're animating, you're banging, you're kicking things, you're punching things, you're elbowing things, doing all kind of animation, and you're verbalizing, you're screaming, you're yelling. That is of the ego. So this is how ways you can decipher what you're being when you're being that thing in the moment. Are you being a possession or are you being the exorcist? Because one of my old videos I said before, awareness is your exorcism when the body and brain become possessed. So when I say when you become possessed in these moments of anger and frustration, where is your exorcist to exorcise you out of that possession? Which is your awareness and your self-discipline and your knowledge and your wisdom and some understanding of the situation taking place. The next line in our doorway is a question. Is your heart seeking a spiritual correspondence, or is your body seeking a biological connection? And you have to know these things. And this is the understanding of soulmates and cellmates. Cellmates are here to have babies and just, to create other cellular intelligences, which are organisms, cellular organisms, which are babies, offspring. So you have cellmates and you have soulmates, and it's very rare that one bumps into their cellmate and soulmate all in one person, which means the person they had a child with or children with is actually their soulmate. But a soul doesn't need a mate to that degree. It's just you found your other half or your other, maybe your twin flame, if you want to put in that kind of role. But it's very rare that one finds their cellmate and soulmate in one entity. Okay? But you have to notice: is your heart seeking a spiritual correspondence with your creation, or is your body seeking a biological connection? Are you seeking to transcend or remain? These are questions you have to ask yourself, and answers that you have to also give your questions. Give yourself. Before you acknowledge a beyond, you have to have knowledge of a before. Once you acknowledge and know that your beginning is unknown, then you know and acknowledge that your ending is unknown. From this point forward in life, you seek to only know that which is unknown and seek to only engage in the unknown ways of life, with practices of the unknown to get closer or closest to that unknown core that your nature is truly composed of. This is why when you know your beginning is unknown and your ending is unknown in the flesh, in the corporeal, or this temporary experience, then you remain in the unknown and you seek the unknown and you enhance the unknown. You make contact with the unknown. You commune with the unknown and you remain with the unknown. So you don't seek to know everything. You don't seek to know what he's doing. You don't seek to know what she's doing. You can care less. You don't seek to know what they're doing because you do not seek to understand them, because you know that you will never understand them, because you hardly understand yourself. So you see, you remain in this invisible ghost-like mode, even though you have an image. You're in the physical form. You stay in this ghost-like mode. You don't seek to grab on to anything or anyone. You have an understanding and a wisdom of what you are, where you're at, and how you function and operate here. Okay, so, and that in itself, once again, is the silence and the spirit. The unknown is the silence, and the unknown is the spirit. See, so you don't seek to know the other person. You don't seek to know why they're doing what they're doing. You may come to understand little glimpses here and there, little, peaks you may understand about them, but you don't cease to understand them fully because you know that you never will. And you know that the noise and the arguments and the fightings of the conflict, the friction, you know that is of the corporeal, that is of the flesh, that is of the physical, that is of the temporary, that is of the third dimensional. That's third dimensional activity, not one dimensional activation. It's a difference. Okay? So seek the unknown, knowing that this reality is composed of three different dimensional layers. What you know, what you don't know, and what you never know. So what you don't know and what you never know is 2/1. So why seek to know anything? And when you seek to know, and you don't try to understand or try to know somebody, you become more silent automatically because you seek to try to know someone or try to understand them. You just become silent and you observe. You become aware. You become the witness of the experience. You don't only witness the activity, the physical activities. You also witness your feelings in your body. So you get to witness something external and witness something internal at the same time, simultaneously. The next line in our doorway is awareness, responsibility, taking fault and accountability maintains balance in a relationship. By engaging in these principles, you're constantly relieving and releasing pressure from the other. And when that happens, you're letting them recognize and embrace their space of bliss within their self. This, in turn, is given back to you for your own space within yourself. You're constantly emptying each other for clear communication to each other. You become black holes of non-stop, ever-flowing compassion and understanding for each other and each other's nature, by understanding the core nature of each other's ways. The understanding first starts within by self-interaction, self-reflection, self-addressing, and self-confession, and then continues outward amongst the other. Every time you neutralize, you mutualize. Okay? And this is also very important and very relevant for the counteracting relationship between man and woman, between creation and creator, or creator and creation. This is very relevant according to this path, very important, of great importance. Responsibility, accountability. Make sure that when you are wrong in a turning of events, that you own up to it. Especially if you know that you're wrong. Don't wait for them to say anything to you. You go to them and you say, damn, I fucked up. Own it. Take it before they speak it. And the sooner you take it and you own it and you become responsible and accountable for it, the quicker you do that, the more you are relieving something from an imbalance from occurring again. Because you don't know how much time it takes for them to come back to you, to say something to you, to refuel the fire. So you want to put the fire out as much as possible. And this is the power of elements, the understanding of elements, the four elements or the five elements. I'm not going to talk about the fifth one, which is time, stay before fire, air, earth, and water. When something becomes heated and fire, you have to become either earth or water to put out the fire. This is the science of the elements. And the element, ment is always mental. El is elder or star or soul, or the antiquitous, what you know as the ancient ways of thinking, the ancient ways of being, the ancient ways of living. And it just means to have gnosis, to know of the situation, to have an acknowledgement and a wisdom and a knowledge of principles and how to neutralize or eliminate or balance situations within the invisible forces that be before you make it visible and verbalize it. You are conducting as a scientist and working your invisible magic before you make it visual. Make sure you are conducting and orchestrating this balance of neutralization within the invisible before you make it visible, before you make it visual, before you conduct it verbally. Do it in the silence of your mind and your space and your orbit and your privacy. Okay? So just make sure that you are emptying the other, because they're looking for you to empty them. They're looking for you to empty the situation which you may have caused. And if you make them come to you first when you know that you were wrong, you're throwing more trash into their garbage bin. And they have enough trash to deal with. They have enough shit to deal with on their own. Why would you want them to carry that, to hold that garbage which you have accumulated? You want to throw that garbage out as soon as possible. At that very moment is garbage day. Take the garbage out. Don't let them take it out. Make sure that you take it out. Make them light, because when you make them light, you bring about enlightenment to them. See? So making each other light helps them to receive the arrival of enlightenment. And when they receive enlightenment, they receive contentment. And when they're content, then they reapproach the situation. And they say, I appreciate you taking that. I'm saying, I just want peace between us. I'm saying, regardless, And I know my ways, certain ways I may contribute as well. So own up to your imbalanced contributions to an ill situation that may be present at that time. Okay? Make the other person light. It's only fair. It's only air. Right? Next line in our doorway is neutralization is internal. Mental dialogue. Mutualization is external, the situation at hand. So neutralization with an N is internal, which is the mental dialogue. You're neutralizing something within yourself to make the situation anew in favor of both of you and your situation. You're neutralizing it, saying, okay, I know what I did. I know I did something correct. Damn, I did that. I kind of started that. And now from the neutralization, and you became aware, now know what you've committed when you come out of the possession of that present heated moment or that prior heated moment. You neutralize it in your mind with mental dialogue and being at one with your heart and your soul. Now you mutualize, which is the external, and you make it verbal. You make it visible. Like I said, neutralization is the internal, which is the invisible. Once you conduct the forces and you align them in the invisible realm, then you make it visible or verbal. Okay? Approach every engagement and interaction with your loved one as empty as possible, as light as possible, as centered as possible, for crystal clear communication and understanding. Back and forth, vice versa, constantly. Crystal clear communication and understanding, which is the countermeasure, countering, counteraction. Okay, make sure this constant flow of counteraction and harmony is constantly present as much as possible for as long as possible, until you both are light-footed, light-headed, light. Okay? And keep each other as light as possible. Keep each other floating, okay, and drifting. Floating in the atmosphere and constantly drifting to each other. The next line in our doorway is, learn to appreciate the simple things in life, the things which were given, the things which cost nothing but is priceless to nature, but is priceless in nature. The natural necessities of life, i.e., the natural necessaries of life. The most subliminal, most subtle, most silent, most hidden mysteries of mental and emotional balance. A peace of mind, calmness, silence, mind privacy, aloneness, contentment, experience, breathing, learning, understanding, existence, space. These are the natural necessities of life, the natural necessaries for life to be of a living nature, of a balanced living nature. Learn to appreciate the simple things. Simple things doesn't mean shit to buy from the store, purchase. It means just to say, damn, I got what I need. I got the breath, I got the oxygen, I got the mind, I got the blood flowing. The experience is taking place. I exist. Um, I don't like to feel this way because if I think this way, I feel this way. I don't like to do that because when I do that, I think that way. And that doesn't help me. It's not serving me. If anything, I'm serving it. I'm not getting anything in return. You want to be simple-minded. This will also encourages silence and enhances silence. Okay? These are just things to learn to appreciate. A peace of mind, calmness, silence. You appreciate silence. Your mind privacy. You appreciate the privacy of your mind. Aloneness. You appreciate being alone. Contentment. You appreciate being content. Your experience. Breathing. You're learning. Wow, I'm learning. Understanding. Wow, I'm understanding. Existence itself and space. Simple-minded. Learn to appreciate the simple things. The next line in our doorway is, when you're trying to enhance and embrace a spiritual connection with your love, listen more than you speak. This is once again silence. To be of a silent nature, to be on silent accordance, to be of a silent intelligence. Okay? Great things come out of silence. Your greatest paintings come from silence in your mind, greatest drawings. The greatest poetry, the greatest spoken or written word comes from out of the silence of your mind. Coming back to counteract the situation comes back from the silence of your mind and the aloneness of your being. So you see, you go into silence to take something out of silence before you make a sound or an action, because then the sound is wise and the action is wise. When you go into the silent intelligence and genuinely go into it and genuinely want to pull something out of it to bring about balance to your present and prior imbalanced situation with your mate. Okay? Listen more than you speak. When you're trying to enhance and embrace a spiritual connection with your loved one, you need to listen more than you speak, which means you need to be a womb, phallus. You need to be a hole. You need to pull in, to vacuum, to see if what's being conveyed to you finds residence within you. This is why you are listening when you speak, because you want to hear it and you want to say, okay, let me be quiet, let my ears be open, my mouth be closed, to see if what I just heard or what was spoken to me finds residence within me. Of what was just being conveyed to you. That's why much stillness and silence is needed. If something is in constant motion, verbally and physically, getting pissed off, yelling things, hitting things, destroying, smashing. If something is in constant motion, verbally and physically, that other something will become more challenging to find resonance and relevance within you because you are always in a motion. If you're trying to throw a round ball in a round hole on a floor that's moving left to right, front to back, the chances of that ball dropping in that hole is very, very low. Be still. Be silent. If you are a floor and a hole, if you are a hole or a floor with a hole, and a ball was just thrown at you, a round ball was thrown at your round hole, and you're moving, and the ball was thrown in one direction and you move, the ball is not going to hit the hole. So therefore, you do not receive the love that is coming at you because you're moving too much. You're pissed off, you're screaming, you're yelling, you're kicking, you're breaking things, you're smashing things, you're destroying stuff. You're in this rant, in this rage. And love is constantly coming at you. Spirit is constantly talking to you. The heart is constantly beating. The soul is constant. It's there. But if you're moving and you're verbalizing too much, you're talking and you're moving too much, you will not receive what is actually trying to make contact with you. Right? So be still, be silent, be still. That's just obvious. The next line in the doorway is silence is to be of keen awareness. Keen awareness. This is what silence is. Stillness, silence, observation, and analysis. Realizing this determines how you move forth from that point on. So instead of using your device of decision making, which is the left and right brain hemisphere, let it decide for you and show you how to move and act, because it is always right and exact. You can be wrong. It is always right. See, this can be an interference to this. Like I said, this is just going. And it knows it's its own intelligence. It's just going. It's just beating. It has its own purpose, its own agenda. And this is going on a straight line. It's going on a linear intelligence. This is going back and forth like ping pong. While this is trying to go this way, it's on a shaky bridge. It's going like this. And this is the brain, and this is the heart. See, so the heart will just, it'll get caught in the storm of the brain. Let it decide for you. Don't let these two decide for you. Let this one decide for you, because it knows what it is. It knows its purpose. This has an agenda. This has a purpose. It's a big difference. You can be wrong. It is always right. Okay? The next line in the doorway is, learn each other in silence and observation. Learn each other's ways. Now this is an example. Like a cat. It doesn't speak English. It just moves in slow rhythm and slow grace around you and your being and your atmosphere, and watches you and studies you and knows exactly what to do and when to bring about a balance for you. Like when you're emotional about something and then the cat just rubs up against you and lays on your lap and makes you pet it and rub it back and forth, and then you feel more calm and relaxed. You see, it just knows just by simply being silent, being still like, being graceful, and just watching you. It's just witnessing you. It's just aware of you. It's watching you. It breathes slow and quiet. It moves slow and quiet. And it just watches. To be of the silent intelligence, you have to learn how to be quiet and to be silent and to be quiet and to be still. Because you have a lot of watching to do. You have a lot of awareness to enhance. You have a lot of witnessing to do. The mouth running cuts the witnessing off. Therefore, you never learn anything about your mate to that degree. You don't learn their innate aspects of their self. You don't get a slight understanding of how to neutralize a situation, because you're running your mouth at them, constantly triggering them. You got to learn to be quiet and learn to be still. Okay? So just like I said, like a cat. It's a perfect example. How the hell they know you so good? How the hell they know when you're mad even when you don't tell them you're mad at anything? They automatically see the emanating energy from your aura. They can automatically tell from the patterns of how you're moving and your routine throughout the house. They can see it, they know it, they feel it, they sense it. And how are they able to know it, feel it, see it, see it, and sense it? Because they're silent. And they're graceful. And they're very calm. And mostly still most of the time. They're just laying. Laying like royalty around you. Like you flipping out going crazy, they're just looking at you. And they're able to figure you out. Just like that. Very, very keen awareness beings. So learn each other in silence rather than noise and sound. Be the cat. Be the intelligence of the feline. Okay? Learn your mate in watchfulness and silence. This is just something to understand according to the knowledge of the brain. Um, the woman is more right-brained, the man is more left-brained. He should become more right-brained, which is spiritual and emotion, and she should become more left-brained, which is analytical and logical. And within that trading, a union appears of free-flowing communication. He seeks himself inside of her, and she seeks herself inside of him. So, say she did something wrong, or she committed an action which caused an imbalance in the situation at hand. And instead of telling her, you know what? You know exactly what you done, or what you've done. You know exactly what you did. Why did you do that? You know that shit only makes things worse. That's your logical and rational, which means that you're going to trigger her logic and rational. But you want to talk to her in her nature. Her nature is spirit and emotion. By nature, a woman is the spirit brain and the emotion. By nature. You have to talk to her in her language, spiritual and emotion. You don't say that. You say, I'm feeling kind of disappointed right now. You made me feel away. I feel as if you don't respect what I set forth as the law of the house, as the one who sets law in the household or home. You're not respecting what I asked you not to do. I'm feeling a way about that. She will convey to you more and have a more free-flowing conversation and communication with you when you cater to her feelings. And instead of telling him, oh my God, I feel this way, I feel that way, I feel like you're just not doing it, I feel like you're just picking on me, I feel like, speak in his language and his nature. He is the logical and rational and analytical. You say, instead of saying, I feel like you're targeting me, you're bullying me, you're doing this to me, you don't care about me. Don't speak in your feelings to him. Speak in his language and his nature. Speak in logic and rational and analytical. And say, yes, I was wrong. Because I know that you say to do this, or you asked me to do this instead, but I did the other instead. And I know that might trigger you and make you mad. This is where we are now. I understand why we're at. You matched his language and his nature. You matched her language and her nature. And watch how the communication starts to flow in a different manner, in a different algorithm, in a different harmony, or in its natural harmony. He's seeking his self inside of you. She's seeking herself inside of you. Where am I within him? Where am I within her? She's seeking to talk to herself within you. He's seeking to talk to himself within you. Okay, so by nature, in order to have a more free-flowing communication between man and woman, a man has to open his heart chakra. He has to be more of the feminine intelligence. Not be a woman or something, though, but be of the feminine intelligence. To open his heart more. See, a man trades his love for power. A woman trades her power for love. See, this is the respected nature of man and woman, of the feminine and masculine. They're trading places to share one space. They're trading place to share one space. But you have to communicate to your woman in her nature. She is of feeling, talk to her and tell her how you feel. He is of logic and analytical, talk to him and tell him how you feel through language of analyzing what has just occurred. and things will become more clearer and more free-flowing and more respective of each other's nature and each other's position in a relationship. The next line in the doorway is purify to seek innocence. Purify to seek innocence. Silence is closest to the primal core of being. So surrendering to it and learning it means moving deeper and deeper to a more primal nature of your being, which is known as the soul, after transcending past spirit. And the soul is one's own divine innocence. So your innocence is your soul. This is what the 42 laws of Ma'at, the 42 assessors of Ma'at, or the 42 negative professions of Ma'at, these things is getting to that innocence. It's saying, I have not done that, I have not done this, I have not done that. Yeah, your soul never did these things. Your physical body may have did these things, but your soul is innocent. So it never done these things. See, so it's like a self-confession, but it's called a negative confession, or it's known as negative confessions. The 42 laws of Ma'at, which is what the 10 commandments actually derive from. They derive from the 42 laws of Ma'at, which is almost maybe 10,000, maybe 20, 30,000 years old. Maybe even more than that. Dynastic Egypt, pre-dynastic Egypt, far back. It was written by 5 sages. So you want to get to that innocence. This doesn't mean to give you an excuse to still be an asshole or be a jerk to your woman or to your man, to your king or to your queen, or however title you guys put on each other or see each other as. But you want to get to that innocent aspect of yourself. And when you get to that innocence, you don't necessarily commit these physical actions anymore to that degree, because it becomes kind of irrelevant. You know, it's non-void. It becomes irrelevant after a while, because you see that that's the fake or the illusional aspect of it, the illusional traits of it. And just knowing that of your innocence and your purity, you are of the soul. This third dimensional activity and action and reality and dimension doesn't really seem as appealing and appeasing to you anymore. And since the soul is silence, you will become more silent and more still and more in your orbit, a lot more. So don't perceive it as the other ones just leave you alone, that they're not interested in you. They're always in their own space, in their own mind. They're doing that because they're enhancing an aspect of themselves. They want to better they want to enhance that aspect of themselves which is asleep, which is dormant, which is hidden, which is subliminal, which is the most subtle, most sensitive core of their being. And for that to be enhanced and imbued, one has to be silent and still. Okay? Like I said again, silence and stillness is an intelligence. It is not just some thing and no, it's an intelligence. It's actually intelligent. But it's an intelligence part of it. The next line in the doorway is the intelligence of silence is to know and feel it without having to hear or see it. Study, observe, analyze, witness, investigate the ways of your loved one, to be the immediate counterbalancing intelligence for them without them having to say a word or commit an action towards you or around you. Just know it instantly and create that balance in the midst of a possible imbalance trying to make surface. In a way, it's you becoming the one who prevents an imbalance rather than a participant of the imbalance. Once again, like I said, you become the resolver. You counteract before the action even takes place and becomes active. But all that I'm saying right now will not be a true reality to you until you start applying silence. Then you're going to get a lot of out of it that is going to make this video make a lot more sense to you and clarity, because it speaks to you soundly. It speaks to you through feeling. It speaks to you through sense. You see? And it speaks to you through action. Action, animation, two different things. Thought seeks to become action. It's a crossing over. So when you're in that silence and in that stillness, you're automatically going to resort to sound and action sooner or later, because it's going to find that it's going to make its way over from the one-dimensional reality to the third-dimensional reality, from the invisible to the visual. Okay? From that which is space to that which takes place. But just be in that space, and you will receive what you are supposed to receive, and you will act accordingly. Because you will be advised and informed through the intelligence of silence what to do. Next line in the doorway is, communication is creation. When communication is cut between you and your loved one, creation can't be. Talk to come together on different prospects of united projects to do together for enjoyment and or financial solutions. When we communicate, we create, presenting ideas and plans to one another, etc. Communication is also solution. Communication is also clarity, construct, openness, free-flowing energy. So before I say you utter a word or utter a sound, cater to your silence, cater to your stillness. Get advised from the silence and the stillness what to do. Don't just do it without first resorting back to your intelligence of the silence and the stillness. Go back, retreat back to your silence and your stillness. Get advised what to do from the silence, the intelligence of silence and stillness, and then commit the action that was given to you to do. Don't just be surface and do surface. No. When you feel you're getting a little surface, get underground, get inside, get internal, get innate, get insidious. Get instructed from there, get advised, get informed from there, and then come back out to the surface. This is what creates free-flowing communication. When both parties are doing it, both parts are doing it. You and him, you and her are doing this. It makes the creation, the experience just that much more enjoyable. Okay? This is why people do meditation and yoga and stuff like that together. Because they're trying to meet on a realm or dimension which is not visible and which is not of noise or sound. They want to be in the silent realm. They want to have a spiritual communion, a spiritual connection. They want to become one androgynous energy when they leave this physical flesh. This is the whole point of relationships. You are coming together on the physical to infuse on the spiritual. This is why I talked about before. You see most of the most ancient gods, or the most antiquitous gods and goddesses. Goddesses look like half man, and the gods look like half woman. This is the ancestors or the antiquitous saying, or times of antiquity, the minds of times of antiquity, they were saying that you have to infuse with your mate spiritually. So therefore, you have to get the understanding and the knowledge and the gnosis of what's taking place physically in order to connect spiritually. You have to have an understanding of the mind and its workings, and the heart and its workings, and the spirit and its workings, and the purpose of the soul, and the purpose of the damn relationship and experience that you've agreed to take place. Okay? The next line in the doorway is, when an argument, conflict, friction, or dispute takes place in a moment between you and your loved one, there's another communication taking place in that same moment within the realm of silence. Let me say that again. When an argument, conflict, friction, or dispute takes place in a moment between you and your loved one, there's also another communication taking place in that same moment, but in the realm of silence. Okay? That's why the argument gets louder and louder, because the physical agenda And sound intelligence is trying to override the silent intelligence and override your awareness of it. But why? To keep you away from the silent intelligence trying to convey something to you and through you. It does anything to try to distract you away from its opposite, just to sustain its extreme. Okay, this is an extreme energy. Energy is an extreme. Extreme is energy. Energy that's taking place, whether it be arguing, whatever's going on, it's an extreme. And an extreme is only there to serve its purpose. But the more intense an extreme gets, it means that it's trying to distract you away from something else that is actually real, that is trying to take place between time and space in that moment. So if a whole bunch of noise is going on, that means it's trying to override the silence. It's trying to override something else talking to you. It's trying to remain talking to you and in communication with you and trying to override other things trying to talk to you and communicate to you. That's why things get more louder and louder and crazier. But it's funny because after all that loudness and that action and that conflict taking place, that takes place, silence comes. You ever notice that? How you just become silent again? And what they call, ignoring each other, not talking to each other. But is it really not talking to each other, or is it silence coming back to the surface to show you your dumb ways or your ill ways or your imbalanced ways? Because in that silence is when you begin to self-reflect. And then one of you are going to apologize to the other. If not, both of you will come and meet in the middle and apologize to each other, or take the weight, take accountability and responsibility and ownership for both of your contributions, both of your buckets of gas to the fire that you both create. We now put water, like I said, be of elemental intelligence. When something is getting hot and heated, they call it heated. Why? Because people begin to perspirate. People begin to get hot. Their skin, blood begins to surface to the surface of the skin. You get hot, get pissed off, you start sweating. Because things are getting heated. And anybody knows anything about heat and biology, when you become sick or the body becomes sick, it goes through a certain kind of heating process. The temperature rises, a flu, pneumonia, whatever. The body gets hot. So when hotness is present, a sickness is present. Think about it that way. Okay? You're poisoning each other. So as much as you poison each other, be the medicine to each other. This is why after every poison comes a dose of medicine. Because it's actually the same thing. Another way, another conversation. But a poison is a medicinal, and medicinal is a poison. Venom can be used to kill some, but venom is also used to cure something. Snake venom. Okay? Different extremes, different energy forms. Nothing is bad, nothing is good. It's just different energy forms, different extremes. But the only point is, how are you directing it or redirecting it for the benefit of your purpose that serves you, that you are not unconsciously and ignorantly serving? Don't serve its purpose, because it doesn't have a brain, a left and right brain hemisphere. It doesn't have a discernment or a discriminating purpose or a stop and go. It'll just keep going. And this is why people end up killing each other. Because it is an energy, it is an extreme. But you have a discernment vehicle, a discriminating vehicle, a deciphering vehicle, a deciding vehicle, a choice mechanism. You can get mad and pissed off and say, nah, I don't even want that. Let's not do that. I care about you, you care about me, right? So why are we even going? Pardon my ways. She says, pardon my ways. All right, what's going on all day? So use your discernment vehicle, which is the brain. Brain is not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just a thing. But how are you utilizing this thing? That's the point. You are able to direct and redirect something. An extreme when the energy doesn't have it in one direction. It keeps going. So one of you were dead, or one of you were paralyzed, one of you in the hospital, or just split up and broke up. Okay. It's conscious as itself. You are conscious of yourself. That's the difference. Next on the doorway is as much as you talk and understand in sound, also talk and understand in silence. Enhance your subtle and sensitive nature, the place where the force of life exists before it takes form. Subtle and sensitive nature is the place where the force of life exists before it takes form. Right? Which is pregnancy, embryo, fetus. You're developing. It's very sensitive. It's very subtle. She may feel it, but she doesn't feel you. As you go through the trimester process, you begin to form. It's a very sensitive, subtle nature, which is where the force of life is at. And you just appreciate it. So, being in that realm, you begin to get engulfed by the principle of appreciation. It just is what it is. Okay? It just is what it is. The next line in our doorway is, practice saying things to your loved one silently in the privacy of your mind towards them in their direction without verbalizing it. And then see if they react or respond from it. Empty yourself emotionally. Okay, I think we kind of touched upon that before in a certain way. The next line in our doorway is almost over. Please remain aware and fair within the reality of the obvious that you are two completely different functioning natures that perceive life indifferent from each other. There's a book called The Alchemy of Opposites. It's a very interesting book. I have it in my library as well. It's The Alchemy of Opposites, or the celebration of indifferences between man and woman, masculine and feminine. Seek to learn of each other's nature and each other's ways. Look forward in order to look inward. Okay. Difference adds color, excitement, exploration, discovery, and surprise to a relationship. Like knowledge, you don't learn nothing new by what you want to hear. You learn by hearing the strange or unfamiliar to make the wheels begin to spin in the mind. It's the same example with your mate. Look forward to the unfamiliar and unexpected events and occurrences in order to learn them and the union taking place that you have committed to. The opening of doors and the entering of halls. So just look forward to things that happen and occur that are not of the expected nature or the intended nature that you thought would be or had planned to be. Look for the plan to go into another plan. Look for things to go off course or for things to get discoursed. That is what you learn from. You don't learn from the familiar. You learn from the unfamiliar. That is what learning is. Learning is educate. You're educating yourself. But educate is educare. The word educate comes from educare. And educare means to draw the spirit out. So you're drawing the spirit out of you in the experience. You learning of your spirit, you have a knowledge and the understanding of spirit to be wise to the spiritual interaction. Okay? So be comfortable with the unfamiliar. The next line in our doorway is, be aware of your potential reactions before you fail to react to something. Go over it in the silence of your mind and question the worth or value of it. And if the outcome of that potential reaction promotes clarity and contentment. So basically, be aware of your potential reactions, not your responses. Response has more self-discipline and control. Reaction is the possession. You're just reacting. You're just a program. You're just going to keep, what they call an automaton. You're just on automation. Oh, that's nice. She said that. You say that. She calls you that. You call her that. She breaks the window. You smash, the garbage top. You're just an action. You're just an actionary. You're just a reactionary. You're on automation. You're in a possession, a full-blown possession. Be aware of your potential reactions. Not the reaction itself, but a potential reaction that wants to sprout like a trigger. Be aware of your potential reactions before you fail to react to something. Go over it in the silence of your mind and question the worth or value of it. And if the outcome of that potential reaction promotes actual clarity and contentment to yourself. If it doesn't, then use your common sense and self-control to cease that reaction from happening. Okay, this takes a little more self-discipline and control. Okay, communicate to your loved one on different dimensions for a tighter connection to enhance the divine infusion, awaiting to intertwine itself into a higher intelligence. Okay? The next line of the doorway is the true nature of love is unpredictability. I was touched upon before. Embrace the unfamiliar. The true nature of love is unpredictability. To keep the mind and being in constant space of suspense for the potential of consistent newness to constantly reoccur. Love is newness, something that is new, something which rises anew. It can be positive, it can be negative, but it's still something new, and it's keeping the newness going. It's keeping itself in like preservation mode. Okay? Stop taking something new happening as an insult and or disrespect and immediately going into self-defense mode for no reason. Don't take it as an insult or disrespect, whether it's positive or negative to that degree. Take it as just something that is new, that is keeping the color or adding color to the coloring book of your relationship. It's a new crayon, it's a new marker, it's a new color paints. Learn to utilize it for the benefit and the agenda and the intended purpose of your well-being and the well-being of your loved one and the relationship which you are holding. Next line in the doorway is your inner body is silent to the outside. Your inner mind is silent to the outside. What does that say about your primal nature? The inside of your body, you can't hear the inside of your body. It's silence. But it's working, it's functioning, it's operating. Your inner mind is silence. Nobody can hear what's in your mind. But it's still working, it's functioning, it's operating, it's being its purpose. What does that say about your primal nature? Without those things being the way it is, you would not be able to function or exist. Does that mean anything of importance and relevance to you? Does that hold any value of your beingness in your perception and understanding? Does that intelligence within itself make any kind of sense to you? You sleep off into a divine sleep in pure silence. Pure silence. Sleeping is silence. When you sleep, the body's in healing mode. So even being in silence, you can say being in silence is also being in a healing mode. You're healing something. Something is being healed. Something which was separated is being mended. The body is in healing mode, regeneration and renewal as it sleeps and rests. It also during sleep and rest in silence and stillness. It also enters different realities and astral dimensions during the sleep and the silence. So this is also what silence is. So just by remaining silent in a moment, in that actual moment, you are actually piercing through and peeking through otherworldly realities that actually exist, awaiting your presence simply by redirection of attention and acknowledgement of it. This is also what silence is. Okay? Responsibility, ownership, accountability, and confession goes the longest way in a union, brings about the most clarity within one, and the supreme balance amongst two. Okay, once more time. Responsibility, ownership, accountability, and confession, self-confession, confessing to yourself what you have committed, goes the longest way within a union, brings about the most clarity within one, and the supreme balance amongst two. Okay? Next line in doorway is, let the heart give the mouth permission to speak rather than the brain giving the mouth permission to speak. Let your heart give your mouth permission to speak, not your brain. Sit with that for a second. Let your heart give your mouth permission to speak. Do not let your brain give your mouth permission to speak. You automatically, when this happens, you automatically begin to speak less. The heart is action, the brain is reaction, i.e., the brain redefines action. That's what reaction is. Reaction is redefining actions. If you know action itself doesn't need to be redefined in order to be. The brain influences you to think twice, to think 3 times, to think 4 times, to think 5 times, to think 6 times, to think on and on, etc. It questions an action that naturally wants to take place through the heart. It fights to uphold its false identity. It hesitates, it resists, and it remains full of fear, exposure, shame, guilt, judgment, and doubt. This is what the brain does. I'm sure plenty of you can relate to situations like that. You thought twice, thought again, thought again, thought again. You find yourself in doubt, guilt, shame, blame. You're going through all this when the heart is just like, let me just be. Listen to me. Let me tell you when to speak. Listen to me. Let me tell you when to move. Stop listening to that. That it has a purpose and a reason. But when this is the main thing that is of the moment, this has to be cut out the equation. Tell this to mind its business when this is in motion or when this is in charge. Just tell this, follow the lead of this. Don't let this override this. Okay? Follow the path of the heart. The brain protects its identity. The heart protects its function, which is the overall balance and health of the body system. Got 2 more doorways left. Next line in our doorway is, within the realm of silence, the principles of knowing, sensing, and feeling become intoned and enhanced. Example, when you're sleeping or just resting in silence with your eyes closed, you automatically feel, sense, and know when someone is walking around you or towards you. And you're always right. So, absoluteness and exactitude is also within the orbit of mind and spirit and silence. This is something else that silence is. So silence isn't just silence. Silence is an actual, factual intelligence speaking to you by speaking through you. But you can only hear it if you are silent on the external. Then your external silence meets your internal silence. You see? And within that, the intelligence begins to speak. And you get it, and you know it, and you feel it, and you sense it, and you be it. Automatically, simultaneously. Next line in doorway is, when noise between you and your mate is present, the one who goes into silence first has the compassion in that relationship. Let me say it one more time. When noise between you and your mate is present, i.e. screaming, yelling, the one who goes into silence first has the compassion in the relationship. And they are way more intelligent than you. If you're still running at the mouth and the other one remains silent, that one who was silent has way more compassion and way more intelligence than you do. That's an obvious fact. Compassion is connected to the word compass, like a compass, north, south, east, west. Compassion is related or connected to the word compass, which means when a situation seems to be going in one direction for some period of time, i.e. an argument, yelling, screaming, conflict, friction, the one who possesses the compassion redirects the energy by directing the energy in a different direction. What direction? A direction towards the dissipation and neutralization of the energy. When something is going east, the one with compassion and intelligence takes it north. When an ill situation is going south, the one who holds the compassion and intelligence directs it west, and vice versa, and etc. So to be of compassion is to be a compass, right? We take out a compass when we're lost. When somebody's lost in the woods or some place that's foreign to them, and There's things covering the light in the sky, high trees, bushes, whatever's going on in that area. They don't know where they're at and they're lost. They pull out their compass so that they can find a direction or a location that they are trying to go to. So to pull out the compass is to be of compassion. So when you're lost in a possession, pull out your compass. Project your compassion. Be of the silent intelligence. You got to think about it. You write the most beautiful and most profound poetry in the silence of your mind, the privacy of your surroundings. You draw up and paint the most beautiful, magnificent pieces of art in the silence and privacy of your mind and your surroundings. There's something within the intelligence of silence that's awaiting your attention, your acknowledgement of it. See what's waiting for you. This is the power of silence, i.e., the power of silent communication within yourself, primarily, and from there with your loved one. Am I as I am? This is another episode. You already know how it goes. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, I'll keep you in vision. 1, 0.